Embattled EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt back in the headlines today after a new report detailing questionable ties to lobbyists and serious concerns about his judgment dating back to Pruitt's time as a state senator in Oklahoma. White House Legislative Affairs Director Mark Short quickly responded.
Scott Pruitt's doing a phenomenal job, and the president's happy with him. And
full confidence.
Yes.
What would it take for him to lose confidence?
Chuck, that's a hypothetical. I don't know. Right now, Scott Pruitt's doing a great job at EPA, and we're excited to have him there.
Remember, President Trump's historic election win was driven in part by a drain-the-swamp agenda, an agenda we strongly support here on The Next Revolution. And in many ways, the president has delivered, banning officials from lobbying for foreign governments after they leave the administration and preventing them from lobbying agencies where they once worked. President Trump has also cut regulations, which means less bureaucracy, and that means less opportunity for lobbying and corruption. But this whole agenda is undermined when members of his own administration don't live up to the drain-the-swamp standards. President Trump appointees' abuse of power is this week's Swamp Watch. We talk a lot on this show about government officials cashing in on their time in public service by becoming lobbyists after they leave. But the revolving door works both ways, and despite President Trump's drain-the-swamp agenda, it's still happening. One government watchdog recently released a study finding a shocking number of former lobbyists now working in this administration and regulating the same interests they used to lobby for. There are 133 appointees in the executive branch alone who previously served as registered lobbyists, including 60 who did so within just 2 years of joining the federal government. Of those 60, 36 had specifically lobbied the agencies where they now work, and only 6 had obtained the ethics waiver necessary to make it legal, leaving 30 members of the executive branch allegedly in violation of the president's executive orders designed to prevent such conflicts of interest. One of them is Keegan Lenihan, a senior official at the Department of Health and Human Services. He formerly worked as a lobbyist representing drug giant McKesson Corporation and its affiliate US Oncology. In his current post, he advises the secretary who oversees the agency in charge of creating national drug policies. Isn't that convenient for his former paymasters? A separate study found 184 former lobbyists working in this administration, including Leonard Wolfson, an official at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Turns out that Wolfson formerly lobbied for the Mortgage Bankers Association, and it's not even his first time through the revolving door. He also worked in George W. Bush's housing department. From dealing with housing finance in government to lobbying for housing finance and back to the government. That's the swamp right there. Here's another one, Rebecca Adcock. She's an official in the Department of Agriculture. She used to lobby that same department as Senior Director of Government Affairs at CropLife America. Before that, she was Director of Congressional Relations for the American Farm Bureau Federation, where her portfolio included USDA conservation programs, i.e. subsidies. These conflicts of interest are just one way that members of the Trump administration are undermining their boss's drain-the-swamp agenda. A number of higher-level officials have abused their power in far more public ways. Let's start with former VA Secretary David Shulkin, who resigned amid widespread controversy over a taxpayer-funded trip to Europe, with his wife, staff and security detail visiting castles and attending a tennis match at Wimbledon. I hope he enjoyed the strawberries and cream that you paid for. Former Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price spent over $1 million of taxpayer money flying on private and military jets. At least President Trump fired him. Then there's Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, who's also spared no expense at your expense when it comes to travel. He's reportedly spent nearly $1 million of department money to fly on military aircraft. In fact, Mnuchin has reportedly not flown on a single commercial flight for business-related travel since taking office. Looks like Mnuchin, a former Wall Street executive with an estimated net worth of $300 million, got used to the lifestyle of the wealthy elite, and now he wants hard-working American taxpayers to continue to fund it. Unbelievably, his wife posted a photo of her and her husband disembarking a taxpayer-funded military plane while hashtagging her designer clothing brands. She also seemed to relish being part of this photo of cold hard cash with her husband's name on it. Here's a hint. His name's on it because he's the Treasury Secretary. It's not your money, it's ours. But none of President Trump's appointees have been under more scrutiny for swampy behavior than EPA Chief Scott Pruitt. He also likes to travel in style, having spent more than $100,000 on first-class airfare tickets, citing safety concerns as justification, as well as nearly $60,000 on charter and military jet flights. When Pruitt requested enormous pay raises for his staff, including a $29,000 raise for his scheduling director, the White House rejected the requests, but Pruitt didn't let that stop him. He reportedly used an obscure provision in the Safe Drinking Water Act to force the raises through. He's also spent your money upgrading his office, conducting expensive security sweeps for hidden listening devices, and purchasing sophisticated biometric locks for additional security. Not to mention the $43,000 spent to convert a storage closet into a soundproof booth where Pruitt could make secure phone calls. He's the head of the Environmental Protection Agency, not the CIA. Worst of all, he seems to be in bed with swampy lobbyists, almost literally. For a cut-price rate, Pruitt rented a condo co-owned by the wife of an energy lobbyist whose firm conducted business before the EPA that same year. Office of Management and Budget Director Mick Mulvaney recently promised to investigate whether Pruitt violated federal statutes with his exorbitant spending. But the last thing we need in Washington is another investigation. What we need is for President Trump to take the lead, fire Scott Pruitt, and throw out the lobbyists from his administration. President Trump's Drain the Swamp agenda is vital. It helped him get elected, and it's a huge part of the change that needs to happen in Washington, D.C. Too many people there still seem to think it's business as usual.